motherhood shouldn't be a hindrance, should be something that actually helps them gain incredible leadership skills. When you're young and don't have many responsibilities, try as many things as you can.
Alba Bayona is the design director at Kohler Mira, the company behind Mira, the best-known shower brand in the UK, and part of Kohler. She arrived in London from Valencia 15 years ago on a one-way ticket with very little money and shaky English. Today, she sits on the executive board. But here is what caught me off guard. She does not believe in work-life balance. She thinks that's the wrong goal. Alba has a different word for it. Sway.
I've discovered a term I much prefer called work-life sway. It's more about knowing when you need to focus on work, when you need to focus on your family, and when you need to focus on yourself.
This is where it gets real.
What I see, at least anyway, women designers, engineers, they get to a point in their career and then, it becomes very difficult to find them.
I hope that after a few years, many female leaders, by the way, that do exist in design can help forge a bit of this environment where other people feel like they could take part.
This episode is about a problem design keeps failing to solve. Women reach senior level and then the industry loses them. Alba is one of the few who stayed and got to the top. What she says about role models, maternity, what actually keeps women in the room is worth your time.
Statutory pay is ridiculous. It's like £150 a week.
This is Why Design.
So Alba, welcome to Why Design. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hello. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you. So for those that are tuning in but don't know who you are, perhaps you could give us kind of the quick kind of intro, the elevator pitch of who you are and what you do.
Thanks. So I am Alba Bayona. I am the Industrial Design Director at Kohler Mira. I guess for those who don't know who Kohler Mira are, it's a company where we have 3 brands. Most of you might know Mira Showers. So it's the leading showering brand, the most known showering brand in the UK. We also have trays and enclosures within that, but we're very known for our showers. That's our core business. And then we also have RADA, which is our commercial brand, where we create products for hospitals or campsites, gyms, schools, etc. And finally, we have Recoup, which is our latest acquisition. And it's a brand that develops the wastewater heat recovery technology, which allows us to support new builds in reducing carbon emissions, and because we're helping reduce energy use. So that's Kohler Mira in a nutshell. And you might be wondering why it's called Kohler Mira. It's because Kohler, which might be the biggest company that people recognize, is our parent company. And the great thing about being part of Kohler is that we are, from a design perspective, we are highly connected to the design teams in Kohler. So we are one of the 7 studios all over the world. We are very connected design community, and we are constantly getting together virtually and sharing ideas, best practices, and how to improve our craft day to day. So
yeah, it's amazing.
It sounds like it's the brands are national, but the connection and the influence can also be quite global.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been a while since I've worked directly with Kohler Mira, but years ago we did a body of work at my previous company, and learning, the connection with Kohler. I think it's fascinating because there's a handful of businesses out in the States where, like Kohler, where they go back, a long way, and and you used to get this, during the industrial kind of revolution in the UK as well. Factories would have, they build kind of homes and then the houses for the workers. So you'd have like all kind of the big rows of kind of homes, and you literally have that in Kohler's like a town, isn't it? With some fire station and everything.
Correct. Yeah.
It sounds really quaint and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very great place to go visit. It's also worth mentioning that Myra itself is also over 100 years old, and it used to have a whole foundry in-house as well. We still have manufacturing, which I guess is worth mentioning, that on our site in Cheltenham, where Kohler Mira is, we have all our offices, but also we have our assembly plants. And we also have manufacturing of trays in Hull, and our national distribution center in Worcester. So it's also quite an impressive operation that we have. And it's great to go every day to head to this design studio and walk through the manufacturing plant. It's really exciting to see the products we make.
Yeah. I've had that tour. I really enjoy it. One of the more quirky memories I have of my time, my tour there. Obviously, we're taking a brief, understanding what the business is about, what they're looking for, and I think I'd asked, about people cycling in. There's a lot of, in Cheltenham, there's a lot of people like the countryside and cycling, and said, so, I assume there are, shower facilities, given you're a shower company. I think at the time they were just building out employee shower blocks, and yet we've just walked through a test of kind of a dozen or so showers all running, and I thought, oh, that's quite interesting that a shower company at that time didn't have.
It's a great place to work. It's a very strong community environment, and very, very strong values, which we can talk about later.
Yeah, absolutely. So the obviously you've got Myra, you've got RADA, you've got Recoup, similar kind of shared technologies, I guess, in some respects, but then obviously very different purposes and different audiences there. How does that, from your kind of remit and kind of experience, what are the key kind of challenges there across those, from a design or a people management side of things, across those three brands?
I think, like you say, they go into very different environments, and they serve very different, or they serve users in different ways. From a design perspective, I wouldn't say that causes challenges. I think it causes excitement. I think people like to learn about all the different things, because it just allows us to keep things varied and to, I guess, cross-pollinate. From actually technology development or design development perspective, yes, you need to think about things differently. You need to test things differently. Obviously, for a consumer, we sell mostly through mass retail. The needs and aspirations of the everyday user are very different around what they expect from the product, how it needs to fit in their home, and how they have a more emotional connection to the product around the everyday experience that they hope to have from their shower, versus a product that might go in a hospital or in a gym that needs to serve very robust amount of. They need to be very robust because they're constantly handling use, and also needs to be understood by all, especially in a hospital where you're going to encounter a wide variety of people with many different needs and abilities. You need to think about usability differently. So the way you approach those briefs from the start, I guess, really depends, to start with the way you're going to research what the user needs and how you're going to look for some of that information, how you're going to find some of those users, and then how you collaborate very closely with maybe the end customer in terms of specification, when we're talking about hospitals, for example, or with the engineers to understand how you can achieve those ultimate results that obviously for things like RADA is a lot more demanding.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Vax and TTI Floor Care. And Kodu, my company, is running the hiring I'm about to describe. So you know exactly what this is. And this is why I wanted to make it anyway. I've recruited for Vax for more than 10 years. Over 50 people, including a VP of engineering and a head of design. I know that building well. Right now, they are rebuilding their UK engineering and innovation function from the ground up. Advanced development, design engineering, and industrial design, all at once. I've not seen them move at this pace in a decade of working with them. So I'm going to tell you what is actually happening, and you can decide. For anyone outside of the bathroom world, why does design matter as much as engineering in a shower?
Well, it matters because obviously engineering matters in a sense that things need to work. You know, the valving inside and how it all interacts with the different water systems and heating systems, you know, that's you don't think about your shower until things go wrong. Right. And
Yeah.
obviously having a bad shower or your shower not working at 7 a.m. in the morning is the least ideal situation. It probably puts you in a bad mood for the rest of your day. And so obviously engineering matters. Design matters because outside of those workings, design creates what you're going to actually interact with. And that also can create frustrations in themselves if you don't even understand where to even start, which thing you need to turn, or if you try to turn it, then it just slips in your hand, right?
Yeah.
With your sloppy hands. And if you then are not even getting the right amount of coverage because someone hasn't considered the human factors properly, and that's very important, and that's that overall experience and the emotion that we hope you feel at the end of it, that's satisfaction that comes from an addition of small things, is what we hope to create.
Brilliant. I've got a question that I'm sure has never been asked before, you know, of someone in the shower industry, but do you have a product either in production or in the works that does not run scalding hot when someone runs the cold tap or flushes the loo? Because if you don't, then that should be top priority.
Well, for that not to happen, the technology is called thermostatic, and Mira actually pioneered in inventing thermostatic mixers. So yes, there is a technology called thermostatic, which now has become commoditized and quite ubiquitous, which inside it has an ability to understand when the flow of cold water has lowered because it's being used somewhere else in the household, and therefore it can very quickly reduce the flow of hot water. So your outcome of the water is the same.
I just need to get a new shower then, I think. That's the that's the issue in my household. Yeah, brilliant. So we're going to get onto the question now that is the title of the show. So Alba, why design? You know, every designer and engineer has a reason they chose this path. What is yours?
My path was probably heavily influenced by my family, particularly my dad and my uncle from my mother's side, which is quite a big coincidence. So my dad's a jewellery maker. So even though he's a craftsman, he has a very technical brain. And he loves jewellery because he can resolve little difficult problems. And I've just lived with that at home, right? He's always had his workshop. He had a workshop where he wrote from, but then also a workshop at home. And I was always spending time around that. But funnily enough, I never really got that into jewelry or making the things with my own hands. So when I was little, people were always saying, you're going to be a jewelry designer. Because, I like to draw, creative and all of that. And I always kept thinking, it's just not quite yes, but no. And then obviously my uncle comes in. He used to be one of the very first people in Valencia. So I'm from Valencia in Spain, which maybe I should have mentioned. And he was one of the first people that out of sort of, I guess in Spain with the Franco dictatorship, etc., many generations didn't get to go to university. So he went to some art school, and then from there he learned his passion from designing furniture. And then he was hired by a furniture company that realized they could have someone who designed it for them. And he became quite a well-known furniture designer in Valencia. And that attracted me a little bit more because I could see that he could envision things, but then they were made, but many were made, not just one.
Yeah.
And that just was attractive to me. And then finally, there was a third moment in my life where someone I knew in my town told me that she was moving out to Barcelona to do a degree called industrial design. And I was, I think, 9.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what is that? And she explained it to me, and I was like, that is it. And crazy, since that age, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And when people asked me, what do you want to do? I said, industrial designer. And people were obviously puzzled because nobody knew what it meant. But
so so I'm always interested in the stories of how people kind of, that they came across industrial design, because it doesn't,
no.
A lot of people assume it's to do with industry, and machines, and know, but it's obviously, it can be, but it's quite often not. So what did industrial design mean to you when you were 9 years old versus what does it mean today?
Very good question. So I think when I was that age, I mostly had visibility of furniture. Through my uncle, but also because Valencia became quite an important city to visit for furniture fair. Not so important anymore, but it had a time. And I remember that I visited it every year, and we had a lot of factories for furniture in Valencia. So I knew industrial design through the furniture industry. And I think it was the element of I can create something that can be manufactured at scale. I think it wasn't until then, obviously I went to university, that I understood the wider applications for it, and that I got more attracted to the user part, to the designing for the user and understanding user needs. And that could be anything. From a piece of furniture that can still bring some function and emotion to you, to a medical device, to a car, to a radio, a water bottle, anything. So discovering that wider range, I think happened definitely later.
Yeah, wonderful. And when you finished your degree, that was in the middle of the financial crisis, and you just left for London. What was going through your mind, your head at that time?
Good question. So it was 15 years ago exactly. I finished my degree in Spain, and I had been doing some internship in a small design studio, and I noticed how the financial crisis was hitting, and they were losing clients. The work wasn't as interesting, because companies weren't investing on the newer stuff, and I just thought I was so passionate about what I had just learned, and I had envisioned how I wanted to apply it, that I just didn't want to stay in a country where I wasn't going to be able to reach for those things in that time. So I just did some research and asking people who I knew had moved out, and and just looking up things on the internet and thinking, where could I go? And London stood out to me when I was researching a little bit of like some of the most prominent designers in the country or agencies, etc. I felt like the school of thought here resonated a lot with my philosophy as well. And I thought, I know a little bit of English already, so why not? So I literally graduated and booked a one-way ticket to London, and came with very, very, very little money and not the best English. And that's how it all started.
But you made it work. You made it like grit and determination. It's incredible how, starting from that kind of that base, of little money, little English, can be a great motivator. I remember speaking to Stuart Harvey Lee, who has been running Prime Studio for the best part of 30 years. And, he famously kind of moved out to New York as a young designer with a suitcase and $1,000, and that, he is still thriving. So, you've got to have that grit. I think also a common thread across a lot of the guests that I interview, those that have reached kind of quite senior kind of positions within international businesses, that international movement, that tends to be a common thread. Whether that be they studied abroad or they went and worked abroad for a period of time. It's that I don't know whether it gives you a view on the world that you just can't get if you just stay put, But yeah, it's interesting.
I agree. And I think it's also, it's just the experience you get from such a move. It's not necessarily the move itself, it's what it entails. It entails fighting for whatever you're trying to pursue day and night. It entails putting yourself in really uncomfortable situations and being in difficult situations. And it also means that you need to find solutions fast. You need to maintain that focus and overcome all the little things that come your way, and also overcome a culture I wouldn't not overcome, but navigate a culture change, an identity change as well. Like, who am I? Am I from here? Am I from there? The more I was living in London, I was starting to feel like a Londoner, but I'm also Spanish. Finding your identity and your circles, and is such a huge learning opportunity and growth opportunity that it just can only influence the other obstacles you're going to encounter as you grow.
Oh, huge.
Because you have an element of resilience and adaptability that others might have not experienced.
Yeah, you have to put yourself out there. You have to go and meet new people. You have to, and communicate when the language isn't necessarily your first language. You have to make new friends, new colleagues. You have to, so in terms of later on in life, some of those key, communication skills are only enhanced by going out of your comfort zone and meeting new people. And it's,
and that also helps your career, right?
Oh, huge.
Working, meeting people. That's a huge part of how you end up encountering opportunities that otherwise you wouldn't have found if you hadn't met someone in a particular place. And it's just yourself out there and having those skills as well.
Yeah. When you've not got someone, to vouch for you because you're part of this big organization and that's just the job, you're the person they go to. It's like, you've got to make yourself that person. You've got to go and turn up and know how to introduce yourself, how to, make friends and influence and awesome life skills, especially, as you get through your career. So, amazing. So, let's talk about some of the decisions that defined you then, throughout your career as you're building. Every journey has got a few make or break moments. Perhaps you could run us through some of yours.
Yeah, I'll try. Definitely the move to London. And the fact that, I had a very clear goal that I wanted to become a designer in London. The thing I was attracted to was just, I guess, hardcore product design. I wanted to design product. I didn't want to end up doing a bit of graphic design or retail design. I just had this very clear idea, and that allowed me to just focus on one thing. And I'm not saying that's what everyone should do in terms of the design discipline, but in terms of understanding what they enjoy and understanding how to pursue it. So for me, getting to that first job, which was after I was in the UK for 6 months, was quite important. And I think it's fair to say that in order to get there, I worked as a waitress to make sure I could practice my English for some time before I could interview well and continue being able to pay for me to live here. So it was tough to do all of that whilst trying to improve my portfolio as I was learning more things or meeting more people. And then finally got my first job at Monitor Audio, designing speakers as a junior designer, which was a great experience because I was involved end to end. So from concept to manufacturing, and that gave me such a strong foundation. So I'm very glad that was my first experience. I think, yeah, and I think and I think I have to say that my English was still not that great, and it was still quite hard at the beginning to understand what I had to do by when I had to do it. But I think I had somehow an ability to prove how much I wanted the job and how much I knew I could do it. And I think they saw through that. And I'm really glad that I got in, because again, it gave me such a strong foundation there. And then I just got to a point where I thought to myself, well, I've tried this now. Now I want to try something else. And I guess everyone has this question mark around what would it be like to be a freelancer. So I just to try it out. So after that, I just after 3 years, I decided to freelance. So, and I just met a few people throughout the last few years. So through some contacts, I did some work for some furniture work, some lighting. And eventually I met, in one networking event, I met Terence Woodgate, the well-known furniture designer, and we just had a great chat. At the beginning, I didn't know who he was when we were chatting, and then because I stayed in touch and gave me his card, I was like, oh, I think I recognize this person. And we became actually really good friends, and he ended up asking me if I wanted to collaborate with him on this jewellery brand. And so my dad could make some of the pieces whilst with him we were challenging different designers from different disciplines to create jewellery pieces that then my dad would make, and then we were selling in different shops like 2021 or Barbican or Design Museum. And that was a huge experience. So I agreed to that. I was doing that alongside freelancing, and my God, I learned about everything that surrounds a product, which is the brand, the selling it, the promoting it, the accounting, the managing my dad, stock levels, orders, and the website, the shopping, everything. So that was a huge experience that at the same time I became a little bit more of a fixed freelancer at Black and Bloom, designing water bottles and lunch boxes. And I felt like some of those elements that I was learning through my jewelry brand were helping me inform in Black and Bloom how to take an approach that went beyond just the product and how to think more about how is it going to be photographed, how is it going to be presented, and create all the different color palettes and all of these things. I started to take a bigger picture approach there, thanks to what I was learning in my own brand. And I think in terms of a make and break moment, I would say it got to a point with the jewelry brand that I had to either decide if I took it to a bigger point and I invested more money, or something, or I just stopped it and continued just doing industrial design. And it was a very tough decision. But I ended up deciding to stop it and focus on industrial design because I had ended up doing a lot of the jobs that I wasn't that interested in, but I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
And at first I saw it as a failure. And I think that's a big takeaway.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, wow, I can't do it. I saw it as a failure of, I can't do it all. But I think later on I recognized that there was bravery in admitting that I couldn't do it all. I didn't need to, because I had other choices that
So
would be
was the business not in a position, where, hiring someone or outsourcing some of the, the business side of things that you didn't enjoy? Could it not do that?
So I could have done it by investing more money. Essentially, it was a larger commitment. That was like, do I fully commit to this, or do I just want to do industrial design instead of being like a brand owner? And I reverted to, I just want to go back to in-house design.
Yeah. Sounds like you had some soul searching and you thought, we could go deeper into this. But then I guess the upside is that it could be something amazing. You have your own brand, but then the downside is that, you're then responsible for more people. You're taking on more overhead, more liability. And if it's, some of the things about that running a business, if you don't genuinely enjoy them, there's lots of my business I don't enjoy, but I have to do it because we're small, but building to try and build myself out of having to do those things, But,
and I think part of some of that could have come down to immaturity. I think if some of that came along now, maybe I would be in a different position because I have more knowledge. But also it came down back to that scale. I was still attracted to creative things that were much larger scale and more functional. Even
what
though
stage
Yes.
Sorry, what stage in your career was this? I stopped myself asking how old you were because I didn't. That's a polite thing to to do. But in terms of how.
I don't remember how old. It was around 2016, 2017.
So still really early on, in your career then to have this responsibility in this brand.
Yes.
Okay.
And it also coincided with the fact that the industrial design team was starting to be created in Kingfisher, which was my next role, and under Theo Williams, who was starting to put together this new industrial design team for this DIY retailer. And it's when I heard about it, and I was invited to join an interview, and it became that moment of like, do I go back to in-house, large scale, or do I grow and I was more attracted to that.
Any regrets?
No. No, because what I did with the brand was still a huge learning.
Yeah.
I don't, and I think that's another big learning is that gut can tell you a lot. And my gut was telling me something, and it required bravery to make a decision either way. And I just followed my gut, and I think 99% of the times if you follow your gut, you will be right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you could always go back. If the Kingfisher move didn't work out, you always had the option to go back and do jewellery.
I was too young. It's not like abilities,
Yeah.
And that's the key part is when you're young and don't have many responsibilities, try as many things as you can. Because that's how I learned eventually what I really wanted to focus on.
Oh, huge.
Otherwise, you always have a question mark of like, what should have I? But if you try things beforehand, then you are on the right path once you.
Yeah. I think the fear of failure holds a lot of people back, but the fear of not knowing should drive you. Fear of what if it could have been awesome and you don't even try. That's a whole different podcast, I think. But so you spent a few years at Kingfisher. And obviously, yeah, Kingfisher, for those people listening that aren't familiar with that brand, they're probably familiar with Screwfix and B&Q, you know, and kind of some of it was all the own brands, wasn't it, for those, from, you know, hand tools through to power tools and lawnmowers and all sorts of
mowers, kitchens, bathrooms, everything.
Yeah. So quite a broad
It was a very, very
portfolio.
interesting team to join.
Yeah. And you, between Kingfisher and Kohler Mira, was that when you started your family, or could you talk us through that period of your life? Because that's, you know, it was quite an interesting period.
Yeah. So I started at Kingfisher, and then I started as an industrial designer, and then I grew within Kingfisher. So I think again, what I had learned previously on thinking more about the broader elements of a brand, etc. When I was working as an industrial designer, and there is when I learned really what it is to design something and have a big impact, right? Because we were talking about millions of products, and I would question the brief and be like, oh, I would like to change this brief. Who wrote this brief? I like to be involved in writing the brief. So I worked really hard to get in a position where I could influence briefings. But then once you are influencing briefings, and you're like, but in the first place, why this brief and not this brief? Like what before here? And then I kept being quite interested in understanding that there was influencing the fact that there had to be like a cohesion behind all the briefings that were happening to create a bit more of a brand mission, let's say, or a category mission. So slowly grew from being industrial designer to lead designer to then head of design, and I was overseeing the kitchens category and the safety shoes and workwear category as well, which is very varied, but I enjoyed. And I put myself in those positions to be influencing things a little bit more from the early stages. And it's when I became head of design that then I became a mom, and this was 2022. And I took some time off, which I think when you are in a big corporate company, it's a bit easier to find yourself in a position where you can have a maternity package that is quite good. I think it's a bit harder when you are in smaller design consultancies, etc. And I was able to even think about having a family because that was available to me. I hadn't thought about having a family before at all. And that helped me consider it for sure. And then I came back, continued as a head of design, and then I just couldn't resist myself, and I continued to think about how I could continue applying my skills at the next level. And is when I heard about the opportunity at Kohler Mira, and I was highly attracted to it for many reasons. One, because I could become the director there and have oversight of a whole brand that was a leader brand in the UK. Also the connection to Kohler, which is a family-owned company. I think both Kohler and Kohler Mira have very strong values around people and the planet. And obviously the fact that at Kohler Mira we have a female leader. And that was also very attractive to me. So again, that also took courage because I had to move out of London and move my family and, not to another country or continent, but, it was still a big move because I had made London my home. I had invested in that. And then suddenly I had to meet new people, meet new everything, redo my life. And but I think we can say that it was the right move again, trusting my
So,
gut
yeah,
and
you've just
having the
recently,
bravery to do it. Yeah.
yeah, you've just had the promotion as well, haven't you? So, congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I started as associate director, and as
Yeah,
of May, I became the design director. Yeah.
amazing. That's great story. And without, trying to state the obvious, but, becoming a mum, and taking time out on maternity, and now, you've got a young child, so 4-ish years old, I'm guessing, 3.5. Yeah, good maths. You know, how has that changed you, as a in terms of your aspirations or your drive, or, as a designer, have you noticed any fundamental changes there?
I would say maybe not as a designer, but I think as a leader, in terms of how much more you are able to absorb. Your brain just unfolds in, it's just your capacity to be able to stay on top of 100,000 things is
Yeah.
100% a skill I've got as a mother. Um, and I think a skill I would say that it's not that comes naturally as a mom, but you need to learn as a mom and as a career-driven person, is that you need to know how to. Something I've learned recently, which has been incredibly helpful to me, is that these things could lead to burnout very quickly when you're trying to be the best at everything. And I would say that work-life balance was an expression that was too damaging. I think work-life balance implies that you have to still be good at everything. You're just balancing everything, but everything has to be going great and perfectly. Whereas I've discovered a term I much prefer called work-life sway.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's more about knowing when you need to focus on work and understanding that for this moment your energy is going there and this needs to be on pause. When you need to focus on your family and everything else might not be perfect, but it's okay. And when you need to focus on yourself, because without focusing on yourself, those two things won't go well either. And work-life sway is something that I think also helps to balance priorities than when you are in a leadership role, to understand where you're going to put your energy, your team's energy. Yeah.
Huge. And what I love that reframing, and it makes, I'm thinking of kind of instances in my life, but also more recently building a team with Kodu. We've got Keanu, who's got a very young family, and he works so hard, and I can see that he's trying to balance, for his, but actually, there's been times when I've said, look, you need to focus on family now. The business is still going to be here. The business, and so long as no one gets hurt or dies, things are, go and spend that time. Don't fret about kind of asking me for like an hour here, an hour there to go to the doctors or what. Just go, just and just sway. That way. That's
and that's hard. But calling it sway gives you a little bit of forgiveness of like actually.
Huge.
Okay, that I'm swaying. I'm not balanced.
Yeah. No, because it's no good to anyone if you have a breakdown, because you're overworked, you're trying to balance everything, keep every plate spinning. No one wins in that scenario. But everyone does if if you're healthy, mentally and physically, because you've swayed, you come back the other way stronger.
Yeah.
And more impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
It's easy. It's taken me years to figure this out. So I hope for some years. But that's definitely the stage I'm at with leadership and family. And that's a huge discovery for me.
I love that. I love it. How much of an impact does having, female leadership at Kohler play into that or enable enable that element of sway?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. I think there's two elements to that. If I speak in particular about my leader, my boss Emma, I think it's been really great to have her particular approach is very empathic and very compassionate, and she has a strong passion for developing people, and for creating a community where people feel like they belong. And she's offered me incredible opportunities to develop and to get. And I think part of those opportunities have led me to have found this Zen moment in my brain. So I think I don't think it comes down to gender, but perhaps it just comes down more to individuals. But in this case, I've never felt so supported from a development perspective. And one of the other great things that I've, thanks to her, discovered is how to. I've always been very obsessed with the things I wasn't getting right, my weaknesses, my when I've made a mistake. And although some of that self-awareness is really good, fuels wanting to be better and wanting to learn, it can also get to a point where it's really unhelpful. And again, also the burnout. And it, when you're a leader, you need to step away above that. And I've learned a lot about focusing on your strengths and having your weaknesses obviously under control and keeping them in check, but being really aware of your strengths and bring that more positive outlook to what you are able to achieve, and use those strengths to be the best you can be, to be your superpower at home, at work, in your everyday. And it's helped me introspect a lot and understand, all right, I am good at some things, and I can do them in my favor, but also in my organization's favor, and to bring ultimately great products to the users. So in that aspect, having Emma as a leader has been really great. And I guess she does bring a really empathic and compassionate approach to understanding also that I have a broader life than just my job.
Yeah. Sure. It's that emotional intelligence, I think, and that compassion of, it's not, it's not work or family, they are all connected, because ultimately you hire, it's people, people in the business, and they have lives outside of work, whether you like it or not, so, you can't just leave it all.
That's highly recognized at Myra. A business is nothing without its people, because they're the ones delivering the mission every day, regardless of what area they work in.
Huge. You've been promoted recently from associate director to director. What's been the biggest change or adjustment you've had to make with that? Because now you're now sat on the board, I believe.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest change for sure. I think is the amount of time I spent discussing some business topics versus design time. So before it was more like 90-10, whereas now it's more like 70-30. And what's been great is that I've been able to, since I started, create a good foundation in my team, and to be able to now spend a little bit less time with them and them feeling empowered, and able to run more independently, because we've created certain frameworks and strategies and values, and within that they can operate really efficiently.
Was there design representation on the board prior to you being promoted?
Yes. I'm sorry, before I was promoted, no. But before I started, design directors, yes. So that's another thing that attracted me to this role, was that design had a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Design's really always been highly regarded in Kohler Mira and is very highly regarded as well in Kohler itself. And having that seat at the table was really important to me. And I think I am able to bring that different perspective compared to my other colleagues that might come from marketing, engineering, sales, finance, operations. So it's really good. And the other part of it is that we are almost 50-50 gender split. We're not
amazing.
50-50 just because we are an odd number.
Yes.
But
is that on the board or is that as a business?
On the executive board.
Yeah.
We also are, again, a varied group of people from different disciplines and different backgrounds. And I think what's really nice as well is that since I started, I was always told that in this kind of meetings, you have to leave your functional hat at the door. Is the expression we use, meaning that when you're in these meetings, you are not only there to talk about your function, you are there to have an opinion and challenge and discuss anything.
Love
so
that.
Everything can be stress tested and the challenges can be resolved then and there. And that is something that I appreciate massively. I value, and I think it then influences, it permeates through everything.
Yeah. No, I love that. I know that more organizations need design representation on the board. We've just placed a chief product officer for a business that's been struggling to get, someone that kind of gets design, that can champion design on the board. It took us a while to get there, but now they've got that that can influence the wider business as well and how it all impacts on product. But you can bring design thinking across, and those benefits of problem solving, to functions that might not have had it.
And I think another big learning, if anybody who's listening wants to become a design leader, which, is not for everyone, but I think we also need to listen. And I think having a seat at the table as a designer doesn't mean that we need to tell everyone what to do. We actually need to, and I think you learn that as you grow and as you interact more and strategize more with other functions, is that you need to be quite humble. You need to listen more, and you need to, and I think that's design thinking, right? It's like, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to observe this user and I'm going to listen to them. Or I'm going to organize a workshop, but I'm just going to facilitate it and I'm just going to listen to people. And then it's and about how you might, and then you need to empathize with what everyone's bringing to the table and what everyone needs, because everyone has good points and good challenges. And then when you decide to then contribute, is because you've managed to kind of bring that all together and distill it and be like, right, yes, this makes sense. Oh, this doesn't. Or, and I would say you need to apply that in design leadership as well. Design leadership doesn't just mean I'm going to lead and tell you.
Go and do this. But you can't, it's very difficult to solve problems if you don't listen to what the problems are, listen to the people. It's discovery, it's problem solving, it's problem solving 101, isn't it? So,
and they get more and more complex.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
So listening is even more important.
Huge. I mean, it's a life skill that everyone should work on, active listening. I'm a big advocate of that.
Yes.
In terms of, obviously you just mentioned you sat on a nearly 50-50 split on the board.
Yes.
Your team, though, correct me if I'm wrong, is predominantly, if not all, male, is it? Or yeah?
It was when I started.
Okay.
Apart from our intern when I started, Elisa, she was a woman, is a woman, but the main team was all men, and I think that's just in the nature of our industry. and how there are just fewer women going into like what I was calling it earlier, hardcore product design, right?
Yes.
From university to that.
It's,
There's just fewer women and they're
yeah.
hard to find when you are
No.
recruiting. Recently we had someone retiring and we've been very lucky that we found a woman.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, it's been great to find her and to now have a little bit more of diversity. But eh, you know, maybe I wouldn't have found her, and that would have still been okay because it is part of our industry. But
Oh,
being
yeah.
able to advocate for having a more diversity and being able to find it has been.
I think having female representation on the board and senior leadership, that's a huge sell, to women designers. I think what you say, I see this firsthand, women designers, they, they'll do a few years and then they seem to disappear, a lot of them. Before we dive back in, this one is for founders and CEOs building physical products. If you are thinking about hiring a VP of product, chief product officer, or head of R&D, this is not just another hire. It defines how your roadmap is set, how your teams are built, and how your company competes. At Kodu, we specialize in securing senior product and engineering leaders for hardware businesses entering their next stage of growth. Focused, discreet, high consequence. If that decision is on your horizon, find me, Chris White, on LinkedIn, and let's talk it through. Obviously, your team is, the exec board is near enough 50-50, gender split. As an organization, especially in design, it is pretty typical, it's male dominated. And that, unfortunately, that is the reality of kind of what I see, at least anyway. Women designers, engineers, they get to a point of their career and then, it becomes very difficult to find them, or they stick where they are, they get really looked after because, people want kind of more diversity. It's great for decision making and problem solving to have that mix. So, if you've got a great woman designer on your team, you look after them. You don't want them to kind of be tempted off elsewhere. But then, with raising families, and unfortunately, there's still a lot of misogyny in the industry. Women exit design a lot quicker than men would, disproportionately. But you guys at Kohler, obviously, you've got great female representation at board level and leadership. So that's a huge win. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of secure, a diverse talent when they're available. But what I was going to ask you before the internet dropped out was, what are the changes or strategies are you implementing to try and, move the needle on that and try and, balance things out in the kind of the team?
I think at an industry level, if I may start there, I think for me the one important part is role models, and I think there are not enough female role models for what you're describing, and because of a general systemic issue with women's career and motherhood, right? There's a systemic problem that doesn't only impact design, but obviously it impacts women in every discipline, in every job. But in a job where you already have, in a discipline where you already have fewer women, if you then bring that, then there are even fewer. And then they don't become the visible faces of design. They might not become the designer has done the whatever collaboration with whatever brand, or the director of whatever big company, and what that shows from the outside world is probably an industry that just might not attract women because they might see it a bit of they might not connect as much, and they can maybe not think necessarily about how maybe their different approach or the different perspective could fit well there. And so that lack of role models, I think, doesn't help the beginning of the funnel of the design industry. Also, the fact that there are so many other disciplines to design that aren't just product design. There is CMF, there is research, there is human factors, and those roles are not that visible either. And there are lots of amazing female leaders in those roles. And again, that facade is not as visible to say, oh, it's not that there are all both men and women, is that there are so many disciplines to design, and I can fit in one of those because it all comes down to empathy and problem solving. But it can go down so many avenues. But you only see that one perspective, I think. And I think when it comes to the team, was that impacts your recruitment, right? Because you know that bringing that diverse team is going to help you, but you then struggle to find that because along the line they've just ended up going elsewhere. So it's just a little bit more challenging.
Super challenging. If anyone has the answer, please write in because we're all ears. But we're approaching.
I think we just need to the talent, the female talent, a little bit more, not gratuitously, not at the expense of other things, just in terms of bringing out that visibility, creating a wider variety of role models, and hoping to enrich our community.
Yeah, amazing. And I know it kind of takes us back full circle to how we met as well, you know, in terms of about kind of female kind of role models. I met you at a Women in Design event at Material Matters, and you know, you're on a panel with some great people, you know, women and men, you know, because James Wood, who's coming on the show, he was on the panel as well, and you know, championing women in design. And I think, you know, I'm all for that. And, you know, we need to shout it from the rooftops that there is opportunity, that, you know, there's you can do great things. Yeah, you know, you don't be put off by all the, you know, the stuff that's out there.
Absolutely. And that panel demonstrated how many women there are in design and how many have lots of energy and enthusiasm and ideas and courage, and there was a bit of a common thing where just sometimes couldn't see themselves belonging in certain places. And obviously, hopefully, in teams like mine, when you see that there's a female leader, you can see a bit of hope and you can see that you can belong somewhere. I think because it is male dominated, it just, and not just design, the higher roles in many other functions, right? So when you are growing within design and interacting more cross-functionally, you are also getting together with mostly male leaders. And there's so much I think I've had to learn about how to present myself in those situations, how to persuade, how to convince people of things. And that's just, it's a lot of effort and learnings that might not attract everyone. And I hope that after a few years of me and all the many female leaders, by the way, that do exist in design, can have forged a bit of a different way of conflict resolution or persuasion or pitching ideas and stuff like that, that we can then create this environment where other people feel like they could take part.
Huge. I think, I've not long come back from Women's Health Week in New York and met some incredibly, inspiring female founders, in fact, and kind of leaders and innovators in that space. I think on that side and just in general, I think we're potentially entering a really exciting period, for women in design and engineering, because from the energy in that room and the people I speak to at mixers and events are in the UK and across in the States, one of the we haven't touched on AI, but I'll mention it. One of the advantages of AI is it's given us a lot more data. So all of a sudden, there's a lot more data to go after when it comes to women's products and kind of around healthcare and fitness tracking and body measuring and all that kind of stuff that previously was, the data just wasn't there. It was too hard to obtain. I think that on its own creates a load of opportunity and excitement and should, empower women to go, actually, there is more money being put into that area. And I think that will feed out into the wider design ecosystem as well. Hopefully I'm not just being too optimistic there, but it feels like we are entering a really, really positive phase for women in design, full stop. So
I think that just allows you to have a little bit more faith in the industry as well, right? To say, oh, there are things coming out that are for everybody and serve as well. So I want to be part of that.
Yeah. And I think that will feed out, because it will be, seeing, if there's a young woman that's thinking about studying design and then she sees it as a product designed for her and for those problems, those challenges that she's been facing and up until this point hasn't been serviced, if that inspires someone to think, actually, there is products for me that I could be part of, you see down the line, people that and women that go into those kind of businesses will spill out into adjacent companies, and that will, it's going to take some time, but hopefully that there's going to be a lot of publicity around that and lots of, we need to obviously start with education, etc. But again, it's the optimist in me, but it feels like that, the next kind of decade is going to be quite exciting there. What are you most excited about kind of over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, in terms of what you're either building with Kohler Mira or kind of just in general kind of about kind of design itself?
I'm particularly excited. I think the fact that I am now as a director, I'm able to be a little bit more involved in some business decisions, both tactical and strategic. I'm very excited about that, particularly strategic part, obviously, because that's one of my strengths. And I'm also particularly excited to see how the things I've implemented so far in the design team are going to come together. I had a big vision when I started, but you put all these things in place and then you hope that it comes together. And I think it is. The fact that I am now spending a little bit less time, I hope to enjoy seeing my team taking stepping up and being able to create really exciting products and innovations that we can be really proud to present to the world in the coming years. So those are the two main things. Is like the seeds I've planted, how are they gonna turn up, and the things I'm learning that are ahead of me and how I can learn but also influence, and that excites me a lot.
I think it's a really exciting time to be a leader. You know, personally, just personal experience, it's like I find it very difficult to plan too far ahead. I can have like a 5-year goal of what I think the business might be doing, but I can't imagine what it looks like in terms of people or whatever, because a lot of our systems, you
Right.
know, are just advancing every day. You know, with AI, you know, we're taking a lot of the administration burden out of day-to-day tasks to give us more time to speak to people and have these conversations, go out and meet people. And that's just changing so quickly. So the plans just kind of, we're having to review every kind of 3 to 4 months or so, just to, you know, make sure we're not chasing too many shiny things, but also make sure that, you know, the plan is still fit for the time that we're living in. It's really exciting, but daunting at the same time.
Yeah. There's 2 elements of strategy, right? Create it and then keep it in check and make sure you're not missing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions, and then we'll wrap up. I said I'd wrap up, but quick fire is always good. So, and apologies, there's some puns in here. Spain or London for a design career, and why?
Ooh, I think London, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Why? I think the school of thought here is great. The design thinking, user centricity, all of that is really taken on board and really is manifested through many fantastic products. There's a bigger industry here as well of in-house and consultancies. Therefore, you know, the levels just higher, competition's higher, levels higher. Universities are better as well, so the standards are just higher. Like I didn't mention this earlier, but when I first came in here, I had to put so much effort to improve my portfolio because I realized that the outputs I had from my university in Spain, which, you know, is great, I learned loads and it was free, but the level, I had to put a lot of effort to try to show that I was a passionate person who could do it, compared to the other standards I was seeing.
Yeah.
So yes, London.
So I guess the spin-off advice from that is anyone looking to move over, maybe they've been studying abroad or in Spain and they're looking to move over here. It's like, you know, don't underestimate the level up, you know, that you've got to put the hard work in, you know, and you know, the standard is going to potentially be much higher than you might have previously expected.
Yeah. And you need to demonstrate with your personality and your values that you've got what it takes.
Leads nicely on to the next question in terms of those traits, you know, but a trait that you look for in a new hire.
I like curiosity, and with curiosity starts everything else. If you are, you know, hungry for knowledge, for finding something out, you're gonna be great at learning, at looking for problems, looking for solutions, and understanding what other cross-functional teams want. You know, with curiosity, everything's possible. Then you can. There are things you can teach, but that attitude, willingness to learn, and an ability to think for yourself and have ideas and vocalize them, definitely a big one.
We definitely share that. That's one of the number one traits I look for in new hires as well. Okay, final question. This is a big one, but one thing you would change about how the industry treats new mothers?
How the industry treats new mothers across all the design studios in the UK. But I think something that has helped me feel like I could be both was the fact that maternity was never a reason for me not to be considered for opportunities, to continue thinking about my development. Those conversations, if they don't stop, you don't feel like you are putting a pause in your career. Because because like what I said earlier, even if physically you are pausing because you're not turning up, you are gaining so many other skills as a mom or as a dad, as a family, as a parent. You're gonna bring something new when you come back anyway. And the person you were before can still be the person that you are after. And if you are valued, just if you value the person, just show it and just give them the reassurance that their development and their opportunities don't go away.
Yeah.
And good
Huge.
maternity packages. I know they are difficult in smaller businesses. I think government should support better. Statutory pay is ridiculous. It's like £150 a week. Which, by the way, I didn't cover, so I know
Doesn't go very far.
I'm going over time now. But another element to think about is that if we're talking about a mother who is already a leader, she's likely to be the main earner of the household.
Yeah.
Right? And you need to support that. Because that household depends on that person. But so there's a lot of elements that really need improving to make sure that women feel like they can do both. Because at the end of the day, the motherhood shouldn't be a hindrance, should be something that actually helps them gain incredible leadership skills anyway, and you want that.
Huge, yeah. Yeah, it's like you can't complain about, not being able to hire women or have women like leaders within the business if you're gonna, you're not going to support them during that period and stick by them long term, because in the grand scheme of things, it's a blink of the eye, isn't it? Really, how long you're out of work. You've got a 40
it's not that long.
career.
It goes flying.
So if your business depends on someone being there, kind of, who's going to make or break it if someone's out for 9 months, 12 months, however long it is, then there's something wrong with the plan, not the individual. So
absolutely.
But really, really interesting conversation, Alba. I've really enjoyed it. For anyone that's listening, that wants to follow up or find out more about what it's like to work at Kohler Mira, where would you point them to? How could they get in touch? How do you want people to reach out
so
to?
you can find Kohler Mira to understand a little bit more of what's going on and what's cooking. LinkedIn is one of the best platforms for that. So you just look for Kohler Mira or Mira Showers. There are 2 accounts. But also in Instagram, you can also find Life at Mira, which is a more young approach to the behind the scenes of the business. And our apprentices run that account, and they are always posting brilliant videos of the things that are going on in the office, and all the different initiatives that we're always driving. So I would recommend those 2 for sure.
Amazing. Alba, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations again on the promotion. I'm really looking forward to following your journey further, because it's been exciting so far, and it's far from over. So I'm enjoying kind of following along. But yeah, we'll until we speak again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed our chat, and I hope people feel inspired by this.
I'm sure they will.
Thanks for listening to Why Design. If this episode gave you some new ideas, share it with someone in your team who'd find it useful. And follow the show so you don't miss what's next. And if you're building a product team or looking for your next challenge in design or engineering, that's exactly what we do at Kodu. We help companies hire smarter and faster and help great talent find work that actually fits. I'm Chris White. Connect with me on LinkedIn and let's keep raising the bar for design leadership. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep asking, why design?